Alara pressed herself against the cool metal wall of her containment unit, her iridescent skin pulsing with anxiety. The translucent membrane covering her gill slits fluttered rapidly as she struggled to process the oxygen-rich atmosphere that was slightly too dense for her comfort. 3 solar cycles had passed since the human vessel had intercepted her reconnaissance craft, and each moment since had been spent in anticipation of the torture she had been warned would come. Her people, the Lamidians, had collected enough intelligence about humans to fill volumes, violent, unpredictable primates who dissected anything different from themselves. The High Council's warnings echoed in her mind. If captured, prepare for experimentation. They show no mercy to their own kind. Expect none for yourself. Yet the pain had not come. Instead, there was him. The human they called Dr. Hayes, Marcus, as others addressed him. He moved with deliberate gentleness whenever he entered her chamber, his hands always visible, his voice maintained at a soothing timbre that somehow calmed the natural resonance of her sensory tendrils. The door hissed open, and Alara instinctively withdrew her limbs closer to her torso, the bioluminescent patterns across her skin dimming defensively. "Good morning, Alara," Marcus said, using the approximation of her name that his vocal apparatus could manage. "How are the injuries today?" He pointed to his own shoulder, then to hers where the security team's weapons had left a seared patch of tissue during her capture. The universal gesture of inquiry transcended their language barrier. Alara hesitated, then extended her damaged limb slightly. It was healing, but slowly. Away from her home world's regenerative pools, her body's natural restoration was compromised. Marcus approached with measured steps, carrying what appeared to be medical supplies. His eyes, a striking blue-green that reminded her of the shallow seas of her home world, held no malice, only professional concern tinged with something she couldn't quite identify. Curiosity? Compassion? "I'm going to apply a new dressing," he explained, though she understood only his intent, not his words. He demonstrated with his hands, mimicking the action of placing something on his own shoulder. When his fingers gently touched her injured tissue, Alara flinched, but not from pain. His touch sent an unexpected wave of warmth through her neural network, his body temperature higher than hers, yet not unpleasant. The sensation was intriguing. The treatment he applied soothed the burning sensation that had plagued her since the injury. Marcus worked methodically, his focus absolute as he tended to her wound with a care she would have never expected from a predatory species. "There," he said with a small smile when he finished. "That should feel better." And remarkably, it did. Later that cycle, when the facility had entered its rest period and the lights dimmed to simulate night, Alara reflected on her situation. She had been prepared for agony, for invasive probes and cutting tools. The High Council had been explicit about human brutality, yet here she was, being treated with what could only be described as respect. Through the transparent partition of her enclosure, she could see Marcus at his workstation, reviewing data on his luminous screens. He'd stayed long after the others had left, occasionally glancing in her direction with an expression she was beginning to recognize as concern. As if sensing her observation, he looked up and met her gaze. For a moment, they simply regarded one another across the divide, 2 beings from worlds apart, connected by a thread of something neither had anticipated. Marcus offered another small smile before returning to his work. Alara's skin rippled with shifting patterns of blue and silver, her species' involuntary reaction to confusion. The human continued to defy everything she had been taught to expect. If not pain and vivisection, then what did he want from her? What purpose did this kindness serve? And why did some deep part of her respond to it, like a dormant sensory tendril unfurling toward an unexpected source of light? She settled into her resting posture, her mind filled with questions about this human and the possibility that perhaps, just perhaps, her people had been wrong about them all. 2 weeks into her captivity, Alara had begun to anticipate Marcus's visits with something approaching eagerness. Each morning, he would arrive with new medical supplies, fresh nutrient solutions calibrated to her biology, and most valuable of all, patience. Today, Marcus entered carrying a small device. He placed it on the table between them and activated it. A 3-dimensional holographic display flickered to life, showing simple images: a star, a planet, a stylized humanoid figure. "Communication," Marcus said, pointing to the device, then to himself, then to her. "We need to understand each other." Alara comprehended his intent immediately. She extended a slender appendage toward the device, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with cautious interest. Marcus had been granted permission to remove the transparent barrier between them after convincing his superiors that she posed no immediate threat, a trust that both surprised and moved her. For hours, they worked together, establishing foundational vocabulary through images and gestures. Marcus proved to be an adept linguist, quickly identifying patterns in the harmonic trills and resonant vibrations that constituted her native language. Alara, in turn, found the harsh consonants and variable vowels of human speech challenging but not insurmountable. "Home," Marcus said, displaying an image of Earth. Then he switched to a question mark and gestured to her. Alara hesitated. Revealing the location of Lamida went against every protocol. Yet something in Marcus's earnest expression compelled her to trust him. She manipulated the holographic display, creating a representation of her world, twin moons orbiting a ringed azure planet. "Lamida," she said, the word emerging as a melodic cascade of sounds. Marcus repeated it, his pronunciation imperfect but recognizable. The corners of his mouth lifted in what she now understood was an expression of pleasure. His smile triggered an unexpected flutter in her central nervous system. Their session was interrupted by the sharp sound of the laboratory door sliding open. A stern-faced human in a military uniform entered, flanked by 2 armed guards. "Dr. Hayes," the man said curtly. "The Pentagon is demanding progress. We need actionable intelligence from the specimen." Alara understood enough to recognize the threat beneath the words. Her skin darkened with anxiety. Marcus stood, positioning himself subtly between Alara and the newcomers. "Colonel Blackwood, we've been over this. She's an intelligent being, not a specimen. Forcing information from her would be both unethical and counterproductive. Your ethical concerns have been noted, Doctor. However, national security takes precedence over your personal feelings about the alien. With all due respect, sir, my personal feelings are based on scientific fact. Physiological scans confirm she experiences emotions comparable to our own. Treating her as an enemy combatant rather than a potential diplomat could have catastrophic consequences for future relations with her species." The colonel's expression hardened. "You have 1 week to extract useful information, Doctor. After that, she'll be transferred to a more cooperative research team." After the military personnel departed, Marcus turned to Alara, his face etched with concern. "I won't let them take you," he said, unsure how much she understood. But Alara had comprehended enough. She reached out, her fingers, so different from human hands with their slight webbing and luminescent tracery, tentatively touching his arm. The contact sent a cascade of sensations through both of them, his skin warm against her cooler touch, the subtle electromagnetic field that all Lamidians generated creating a gentle tingle where they connected. "Thank you," she said in carefully practiced English, the words feeling strange in her mouth, but carrying genuine emotion. That night, long after the facility had gone quiet, Marcus returned to the lab. He found Alara in a meditative posture, her body emitting a soft, pulsing glow. "I brought something," he said quietly, producing a small data tablet. "More language learning programs, but also music." He selected a piece, a gentle, classical piano composition, and the notes filled the room. Alara's sensory tendrils unfurled in delight as the vibrations washed over her. On her world, sound was more than entertainment, it was communion. Without thinking, she extended both hands toward Marcus. After a moment's hesitation, he placed his palms against hers. The connection formed instantly, not just physical but something deeper, a resonance between their nervous systems that neither had anticipated. In that moment of shared vulnerability, something fundamental shifted between them, no longer merely captor and captive, researcher and subject, but 2 sentient beings standing on the threshold of understanding. Days blended into one another as Marcus and Alara's communication grew more fluid. The laboratory had become a sanctuary of sorts, a space where they could exist beyond the confines of their respective roles, sharing knowledge and discovering the unexpected parallels between their worlds. "On Lamida, we are healers first," Alara explained, her command of English improving daily. She manipulated the holographic display to show the complex neural pathways unique to her species. "Our bodies generate bioelectric fields that can repair damaged tissue, our own and others." Marcus watched in fascination. "That's remarkable. Human medicine is still largely external. We haven't evolved natural healing abilities like yours." "But your compassion," Alara countered, her luminescent patterns shifting to warm amber tones, "is a healing force of its own." Their eyes met, and the air between them seemed charged with unspoken possibility. Over the past weeks, Marcus had begun to notice subtle changes in his physiological responses when in Alara's presence: elevated heart rate, increased serotonin production, a persistent awareness of her every movement. As a scientist, he recognized these symptoms. As a man, he was reluctant to name them. For her part, Alara had become acutely attuned to Marcus's biological rhythms. The electromagnetic pulse of his heartbeat was as familiar to her now as her own. When they worked side by side, she found herself synchronizing her breathing to his, an intimate harmony that would have been considered a profound connection on her world. "I brought something for you," Marcus said, reaching into his lab coat. He produced a small crystal pendant on a silver chain, a simple piece of jewelry, yet it caught the light in a way that mimicked the bioluminescent patterns of her skin. Alara's sensory tendrils quivered with emotion as he carefully placed it around her neck, his fingers brushing against her skin. The pendant rested just above her primary respiratory membrane, its weight a pleasant reminder of his thoughtfulness. "It reminded me of you," he admitted, his voice softer than usual. Words failed her, so instead she responded in the Lamidian way, allowing her skin to radiate patterns of deep indigo and pearl, the colors of gratitude and affection in her culture. Their moment of connection was shattered by a sudden explosion from the adjacent laboratory. The blast knocked them both off balance, and Marcus instinctively shielded Alara with his body as shrapnel and chemical fumes filled the air. When the initial chaos subsided, Alara found Marcus slumped against her, blood seeping through his lab coat where a metal fragment had torn through his shoulder. His face had gone pale, eyes unfocused with pain. "Marcus." Fear coursed through her as she gently lowered him to the floor. Emergency protocols had activated, and she could hear alarms and voices in the distance, but help would take precious minutes to arrive. Minutes Marcus might not have, judging by the alarming rate of blood loss. Without hesitation, Alara placed her hands over his wound. She closed her inner eyelids, concentrating as she activated her species' healing abilities. The bioelectric field emanating from her palms intensified, visible now as a soft blue light that enveloped the injury. She pushed her consciousness outward, seeking the damaged vessels and tissues, encouraging accelerated cellular regeneration. It was an intimate process, requiring her to attune her entire nervous system to his. Marcus gasped as the sensation washed over him. Not pain, but a profound warmth that seemed to reach beyond his physical body. Through the haze of shock, he became aware of Alara's consciousness brushing against his own, a gentle psychic connection formed by the healing process. For a breathless eternity, they existed in perfect communion. Alara guided his body's healing while Marcus's mind opened to her, sharing flashes of his life, his hopes, his growing feelings for her that transcended scientific curiosity. When at last she withdrew her hands, the wound had closed completely, leaving only a faint silver mark where torn flesh had been. Alara swayed, momentarily weakened by the expenditure of energy. Marcus caught her, their positions reversed as he now supported her. "You saved me," he whispered, awestruck. Alara's gaze met his, her alien features somehow no longer strange, but beloved in their familiarity. "You would have done the same." In the aftermath of emergency, as medical teams rushed in to assess the damage from the explosion, Marcus and Alara remained connected by the invisible thread of what they had just shared. A bond that defied the boundaries of species, a healing that went far beyond the physical. That night, in the privacy of his quarters, Marcus recorded his findings with trembling hands. The subject demonstrated extraordinary regenerative capabilities. He paused, then deleted the clinical language. "Alara saved my life today," he wrote instead. "And I can no longer pretend that what I feel for her is merely scientific interest." He knew such an admission could end his career. He also knew, with absolute certainty, that he no longer cared. The laboratory door slid open with unnecessary force as Colonel Blackwood strode in, flanked by 4 armed security personnel. His face was a mask of cold authority as he handed Marcus an official-looking document. "Transfer orders," Blackwood announced. "The alien is being relocated to Facility Delta at 0600 tomorrow." Marcus scanned the paper, his stomach turning to ice. Facility Delta was a classified military research center notorious among scientists for its aggressive extraction techniques. "This is outrageous. Alara is cooperating fully. There's no need." "This isn't a request, Doctor," Blackwood cut him off. "It's a direct order from the Joint Chiefs. The information she's provided about her species' healing capabilities has significant military applications. We need to understand the full scope of what she can do. Marcus glanced at Alara, who stood rigid with tension. Though not fluent in English, she had developed enough proficiency to understand the implications of the conversation. Her skin had paled to an ashen gray, the bioluminescent patterns dimmed with fear. Her abilities aren't weapons, Marcus argued, fighting to keep his voice level. They're meant for healing, for repair. Trying to weaponize them goes against everything she stands for. Blackwood's expression hardened. That's not your call to make, Hayes. Your attachment to the subject has compromised your objectivity. You're relieved of your duties effective immediately. Security will escort you off premises once you've gathered your personal effects. After the colonel departed, Marcus turned to Alara, his professional facade crumbling as he took her hands in his. I won't let them take you, he promised, his voice dropping to a whisper. Whatever it takes. That evening, alone in his apartment off base, Marcus paced restlessly as he weighed his options. His career, his reputation, possibly even his freedom stood on one side of the scale. On the other, Alara's safety and dignity. It was no contest. His decision crystallized when his secure communication device chimed with an encrypted message from Dr. Vivian Park, his former colleague who had been abruptly reassigned after questioning the ethics of the containment protocols. The message was brief but clear. They're planning neural extraction. Tomorrow. 7 Delta Protocol. Marcus knew what that meant. The procedure would leave Alara alive but fundamentally altered. Her consciousness systematically dismantled to access the neurological foundations of her healing abilities. He was in his car within minutes, speeding back toward the facility under cover of darkness. Meanwhile, Alara sat in meditation, her consciousness extended outward in the Lamidian practice of distant communion. For weeks, she had been attempting to reach her people, sending psychic pulses into the void, unsure if anyone could detect them across such vast distances. Tonight, for the first time, she received an answer, faint but unmistakable. A rescue operation was already underway. A stealth vessel was approaching Earth's atmosphere, piloted by Thaler, her former research partner and intended mate before her mission went awry. The knowledge should have brought relief. Instead, it filled her with conflict. The extraction would be precise and efficient, standard Lamidian protocol for retrieving captured operatives. It would also be devastating for the humans in the facility. Lamidian rescue tactics were designed to disable all potential threats. There would be casualties. Marcus would be there. Marcus would be considered a threat. For the first time in her life, Alara found herself torn between her duty to her people and her feelings for someone outside her species. The connection she had formed with Marcus during the healing ritual had revealed the truth of his character to her, his compassion, his integrity, his growing love for her that mirrored her own forbidden feelings. She had to warn him somehow, to protect him from what was coming. The sound of the security panel being overridden interrupted her thoughts. The door slid open to reveal Marcus, wearing civilian clothes and carrying what appeared to be facility access cards. We don't have much time, he said, moving quickly to deactivate the monitoring systems. I'm getting you out of here tonight. Alara rose, her skin rippling with conflicting emotions, hope, fear, and something deeper that manifested as pulses of vibrant crimson light beneath her translucent skin. Marcus, my people, they're coming, she managed in halting English. Soon. Tonight. They will. Hurt anyone here. Understanding dawned in his eyes. An extraction team? When? Before dawn. They will not distinguish between threat and non-threat. All humans are considered dangerous. Marcus processed this information rapidly. Then we need to be clear of the facility before they arrive. Come with me. I have a plan. As he helped her into a lab coat to conceal her alien features, his hands lingered on her shoulders. The electric current of their connection hummed between them, stronger than ever. Why are you doing this? Alara asked, though she already knew the answer from the way his pulse quickened beneath her touch. Marcus's gaze held hers, all scientific objectivity long since abandoned. Because in all the universe, I never expected to find someone like you. And I'm not letting them take you away. As they prepared to navigate the labyrinth of security checkpoints between them and freedom, both were acutely aware that they were crossing a threshold from which there would be no return. For Marcus, it meant becoming a traitor to his government. For Alara, it meant defying the extraction protocols of her people. For both, it was a choice made without regret, the only possible path forward in a universe that had unexpectedly brought them together across the stars. Dawn approached as Marcus's vehicle sped along the deserted coastal highway. Beside him, Alara gazed at the ocean, her alien features softened by the first light of Earth's sun. The escape had been narrower than either had anticipated. Alarms triggered, security protocols initiated, a desperate race through service corridors with the sounds of pursuit echoing behind them. Now, as they neared the remote cove where Alara's people had established their extraction point, a different tension filled the space between them. "We're almost there," Marcus said, his voice catching. The implications of what lay ahead hung heavy in the air, their imminent separation, the uncertain future that awaited them both. Alara's hand found his on the steering wheel, her touch conveying what her still-developing English could not. When she spoke, her voice carried the melodic undertones of her native language. "Come with me." The simple invitation contained worlds of meaning. Marcus glanced at her, startled. "To your planet? Is that even possible?" "Unprecedented, but possible," she replied. "No human has visited Lumida. You would be the first." The first. The scientist in him thrilled at the prospect, the opportunity to explore an alien world, to document a civilization advanced far beyond humanity's reach. But it was not the scientist in him that had fallen in love with Alara. "What would happen to you?" he asked. "Bringing a human back? Wouldn't that violate your protocols?" Her luminescent patterns shifted in what he had come to recognize as her equivalent of a smile. "I am already in violation of many protocols, Marcus Hayes." They reached the cove as the horizon blazed with sunrise. The secluded beach was enclosed by towering cliffs, providing natural shelter from surveillance. According to Alara, her extraction team would make contact within the hour. As they waited, seated side by side on sun-warmed rocks, Marcus found himself memorizing everything about her, the graceful architecture of her non-human features, the way light played across her iridescent skin, the gentle hum of bioelectricity that surrounded her like an aura. "If I stay," he said at last, "they'll arrest me for treason. My career is over either way." "And if you come with me," Alara countered, "you may never return to Earth." The weight of the choice before him was staggering. Everything he had ever known against a leap into the utterly unknown, guided only by the certainty of his feelings for this being from another world. His deliberation was cut short by the unmistakable sound of approaching helicopters. Military aircraft, closing in fast on their position. "They've tracked us," Marcus realized with dismay. He grabbed Alara's hand. "We need to find cover." Before they could move, the air above the cove shimmered with a distortion that had nothing to do with the morning heat. A vessel appeared, sleek, organic in design, hovering silently above the water's surface. The Lamidian extraction team had arrived, but so had the human forces. As the first helicopter crested the cliff edge, armed figures rappelled down toward the beach. Colonel Blackwood's voice boomed through an amplified speaker. "Dr. Hayes, step away from the alien and put your hands where I can see them." The Lamidian vessel emitted a pulse of energy that disrupted the helicopter's systems, sending it veering dangerously before the pilot managed to stabilize it. From the ship, a beam of light extended toward the beach, a retrieval path for Alara. "They'll open fire any second," Marcus warned, placing himself between Alara and the advancing soldiers. Alara's response was to envelop them both in a bioelectric field, a defensive measure that made the air around them crackle with energy. "Then we go together." Now. Time seemed to compress into a series of vivid moments. Marcus's hand clasped firmly in Alara's as they ran toward the extraction beam. The shouts of human soldiers, the crack of gunfire, a searing pain as a bullet grazed Marcus's side, Alara's healing touch immediately sealing the wound, the strange sensation of molecular displacement as the retrieval beam enveloped them. And then, silence. They stood in the interior of the Lamidian vessel, surrounded by Alara's astonished compatriots. Fowler, her former research partner, regarded Marcus with a mixture of shock and scientific curiosity. "You brought a human?" he asked in their native tongue, which sounded to Marcus like musical notes layered with electromagnetic frequencies. "Not just any human," Alara responded, still holding Marcus's hand as the ship accelerated beyond Earth's atmosphere. "The first to understand us. The first bridge between our worlds." In the observation chamber, as Earth receded to a blue marble against the vastness of space, Marcus and Alara stood together at the threshold of everything unknown. She turned to him, her features luminous with emotions that transcended the boundaries of species. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Marcus looked from the shrinking image of his home world to the alien woman beside him, a being who had transformed his understanding of life, of connection, of possibility. Not anymore, he answered truthfully. He reached up to touch the crystal pendant he had given her, now glowing with its own inner light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with both their heartbeats. Then, with the gentleness that had first begun to bridge the chasm between their worlds, he drew her close. Their kiss was unlike anything either species had documented, a convergence of biochemistries, a mingling of bioelectric fields, a communion of nervous systems that sent cascades of sensation through them both. It was improbable, unprecedented, and perfect. As the ship accelerated toward the distant stars that sheltered Alera's world, they remained entwined in an embrace that defied every expectation, every protocol, every limitation of what was thought possible between different forms of life. In finding each other across the void of space, they had discovered a universal truth, that kindness could overcome fear, that connection could bridge difference, and that love, in all its unexpected forms, remained the most powerful healing force in any galaxy. On Lumida, a new chapter would begin, not just for them, but for both their species. The path ahead was uncharted, filled with challenges neither could yet imagine. But they would face it as they now faced the stars streaking past the observation window. Together, hands intertwined, two beings who had found in each other the most unexpected and precious convergence.